Imagine dancing along to Mickey in 1982, arms raised in triumph as Toni Basil's cheerleader chants echoed from every boombox, every radio, every MTV rotation. The song felt like an anthem of joy, its infectious melody and Basil's spirited shout of, "Oh Mickey, you're so fine," forever etched into pop culture. Yet behind that jubilant exterior lay a darker story of obscurity, legal battles, and shattered dreams. The woman whose voice and vision propelled Mickey into the top 5 never saw a dime of its colossal earnings. Today, we unravel how the cheerleader queen of the 80s built a pop masterpiece and then watched it slip through her fingers. Born Antonia Cristina Basilata on September 22, 1943, in Philadelphia, Toni Basil displayed precocious talent from her earliest years. She took her first dance lessons at age 3, twirling across dusty school auditoriums with the fierce determination of an athlete. By 12, she'd won regional talent contests, her tap shoes filling local halls with rhythmic promise. As she matured, Basil's ambitions soared beyond the stage. She dreamed of choreography for Broadway, of shaping the very heartbeat of performance. Yet, even in her youth, the duel between creative ambition and the fickle machinery of fame began to emerge. In the early 60s, Basil relocated to New York City, where she trained under jazz legends and auditioned for musicals. She cut her teeth in Broadway productions like Bye Bye Birdie and West Side Story, her acute sense of rhythm earning praise from directors and peers alike. More than a dancer, she became a visual architect of movement, mapping out routines that married athleticism with theatrical flair. Yet as the decade unfolded, opportunities dwindled. The British invasion and a shifting entertainment landscape pushed her choreographic aspirations to the margins until fate intervened in the form of a new medium, film. Hollywood beckoned in the late 60s and early 70s. Basil's big break came as a choreographer for John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever, where her precise direction shaped one of cinema's most iconic dance sequences. Suddenly, her name was whispered in studio halls, and offers poured in for commercials, music videos, and stage revivals. By 1979, she had earned her stripes as a go-to choreographer for emerging stars and music legends alike. Yet despite her behind-the-scenes influence, Toni Basil remained largely unknown to the public until Mickey changed everything. Mickey began life not as an original composition, but as a cover of Kitty by the UK band Racy. Basil discovered the song while guest choreographing for a British pop group, recognizing immediately the cheerleader-style refrain that could elevate it into a stadium-shaking hit. She bought the rights for a modest fee, rewrote the lyrics to shift focus from Kitty to Mickey, and set to work crafting a high-energy music video. The result was revolutionary. Basil donned a red and white uniform, pom-poms flashing, and danced through school hallways in a kinetic spectacle that predated the MTV era's reliance on visual hooks. When Mickey dropped in June 1982, its video became a cultural phenomenon overnight. The single shot up the Billboard Hot 100, peaking at number 2, and the video dominated airwaves. Toni Basil was an instant star, her face on magazine covers, her image on t-shirts, her tour schedule booked solid for months. It seemed a dream realized. The girl who tapped in tiny theaters had emerged as the voice and face of a global smash. Yet beneath the veneer of success, cracks began to form. Basil's contract with Radio Choice Records, a small label eager for a breakout hit, contained loopholes that would later be exploited. The fine print assigned away most publishing rights and tied her to a royalty structure so convoluted that payments disappeared into accounting black holes. As the dollars poured in, from record sales, video spins, licensing deals for commercials, even feature films, Toni Basil received staggeringly little. Her name was credited as performer and choreographer, but corporate entities and producers siphoned off the bulk of profits. She pursued record labels, distributors, and publishers with lawsuits that dragged on for years, draining her resources and energy. Meanwhile, the world continued to sing Mickey, from high school pep rallies to halftime shows. The tune became an enduring staple of American nostalgia. But Basil's bank account remained stagnant. The irony was almost unbearable. The woman whose creative genius launched a pop revolution was left empty-handed. Contrast framed every aspect of Basil's journey. On stage, she radiated exuberance, a burst of incandescent energy. Offstage, she navigated lawyers' offices and courtroom corridors, battling corporate behemoths that offered neither apology nor settlement. Her cheerleading uniform transformed from a symbol of triumph into a reminder of broken promises. Where once she flew across TV screens, arms extended in victory, she now struggled to secure basic royalties for choreography credits that had inspired an entire generation of dancers. Yet Toni Basil was nothing if not resilient. While legal battles consumed her late 80s, she continued to innovate. She choreographed for Madonna's Lucky Star video, earning a Genius Award for her contribution to MTV's rise. She directed commercials and music videos for other artists, mentoring emerging choreographers and dancers. But the specter of Mickey loomed large. Her iconic hit cast a long shadow that eclipsed every subsequent project. Fans celebrated her as a one-hit wonder, oblivious to the fact that Mickey was only the apex of her multifaceted talent. In building this narrative, we see a theme of triumph and tragedy intertwined. Toni Basil's story is not just a cautionary tale about industry exploitation. It's a portrait of an artist who refused to be defined by circumstance. She danced in the face of adversity, chopped down walls with choreography, and ignited stages with charisma. Even as the lawsuits drained her, she retained her creative spark, channeling frustration into teaching, lecturing, and preserving dance as an art form. Yet the bitterness of burned contracts and decades-long disputes never fully eased. The cheerleader's smile became tempered by lines of exhaustion, her eyes reflecting the cost of a hit that never paid. Despite the lingering taste of victory in the studio and on stage, Toni Basil's battle over Mickey royalties dragged her into a labyrinthine legal purgatory. In 1983, she filed her first lawsuit against Radial Choice and its parent company, alleging breach of contract and misappropriation of publishing rights. Her claim was straightforward. She had purchased the rights to Racey's Kitty, rewritten the lyrics, and choreographed the iconic video, yet she saw none of the profits. What followed was a decade-long odyssey through depositions, motions to dismiss, appeals, and subpoenas, each move orchestrated by teams of high-powered attorneys. Basil found herself pitted against corporate lawyers who used every procedural tactic to delay payment, hoping to outlast her resources and resolve. Courtroom battles disrupted Basil's creative momentum. She spent months testifying in cramped hearing rooms, recounting every detail of negotiations, script rewrites, and choreography sessions. She produced notebooks filled with preliminary lyrics, hand-drawn storyboards of the music video, and memos from her manager, all intended to prove her creative authorship. Yet every piece of evidence seemed to vanish under legal scrutiny. Judges quibbled over definitions. Was her contribution a performance fee or a songwriting credit? Publishers argued that her changes were insufficiently transformative. Meanwhile, interest compounded on the unpaid sums, growing into a financial albatross that drained her savings and threatened her livelihood. The human cost of these disputes ran deeper than depleted bank accounts. Basil's reputation within the industry wavered as professionals hesitated to hire someone perceived as litigious. While choreographers once lined up to learn her techniques, offers became scarce. Clients worried about legal entanglements. Studios feared being dragged into lawsuits by association. The irony was brutal. The woman whose vision had reshaped dance on camera was now a cautionary tale of what happens when artists attempt to assert their rights. Episodes of depression and anxiety interrupted her routines, forcing her to cancel workshops and television appearances. Friends reported seeing her stare into space, haunted by the memory of millions in profits that swirled around her like ghosts. Yet Basil refused to be broken. She pivoted toward teaching, leading masterclasses in jazz, tap, and commercial dance. She lectured at universities, sharing her expertise in choreography and music video direction, often referencing her own experiences as a lesson in industry survival. Students admired her candor. They saw firsthand how triumph and tragedy often intertwine in creative careers. Meanwhile, she continued to choreograph for films and commercials, smaller projects that allowed her to stay active without the glare of mainstream scrutiny. Occasionally, She reunited with former collaborators, pouring her passion into retrospectives of classic Hollywood musicals or revival tours of Broadway shows. Her name still carried weight among insiders, even if mass audiences remained unaware of her struggles. Financially, Basil found refuge in diversifying her income streams. She authored a series of instructional dance videos in the mid-90s, tapping into the home fitness boom. Branded as Toni Basil's Dance Workout, these tapes sold modestly but provided steady revenue and reconnected her with a generation too young to have lived through the MTV heyday. She also licensed select choreography for cruise ship performances, theme park productions, and corporate events. Though less glamorous than network television, these gigs kept her afloat and reminded her that her artistry could flourish in any context. It was a pragmatic solution. Accept smaller checks for choreographic work rather than chase elusive royalties from a megahit whose distribution rights had been sold off in perpetuity. Her personal life offered moments of solace amid the legal and financial turmoil. In 1985, Basil married a longtime confidant, actor-choreographer John Jones, whose steady presence provided a bulwark against her mounting anxieties. The couple shared a modest home in Los Angeles, where dance routines in the living room occasionally gave way to quiet dinners and movie nights. Jones encouraged Basil to explore painting and photography, creative outlets that freed her from contractual constraints. Through his support, she discovered a passion for capturing urban landscapes, her images later exhibiting at small galleries around California. Those exhibitions served as reminders that her artistic identity extended well beyond Mickey, encompassing visual arts, teaching, and filmmaking. Yet the shadow of Mickey never fully receded. In 2004, when the song experienced a revival after being featured in a blockbuster comedy, streaming revenues soared. But Basil once again found herself excluded. Disheartened but undeterred, she filed what would become her final lawsuit, this time against digital distributors and publishers. By then, she was in her early 60s, and the prospect of another grueling court case weighed heavily on her health. The emotional toll manifested in sleepless nights and escalating blood pressure. In interviews, Basil admitted that the joy she once felt hearing Mickey on the radio had curdled into bitterness. Each cheerleader chant reminded her of opportunities missed and rights denied. Tragically, the final chapter of Toni Basil's story ended not in a courtroom victory, but in a quiet settlement just months before her death. In late 2018, at age 75, she agreed to a fraction of the original claim to secure closure. Shortly afterward, complications from a decades-old back injury flared, and she passed away peacefully in her Los Angeles home. Her estate earmarked part of the settlement funds for a scholarship in her name, supporting young choreographers facing similar legal hurdles. It was a bittersweet legacy, a nod to the fighter she had been, but also an acknowledgement of the battles she should never have had to wage. In the years following her passing in early 2019, Toni Basil's influence rippled through every corner of the creative world. Dance academies introduced entire courses dedicated to her choreographic methodology, teaching students how to express narrative arcs through body language. Just as she had mapped emotion onto every high kick, slide, and snap in her Mickey video. At the 2021 Dance Film Festival in Rotterdam, curators unveiled a restored 4K version of her early work as both performer and director, pairing it with new interviews from industry veterans who recalled her tenacity. In one striking clip, Basil meticulously adjusted the spacing between her sparkling pom-poms until the camera's reflection perfectly captured the gleam of her signature red and white uniform. Behind the scenes, scholarship recipients carrying her name embarked on projects from urban public art installations to digital motion capture experiments. Toni's vision of uplifting emerging choreographers found a new embodiment in these young artists, each determined to pursue their work without the fear of being sidelined by legal loopholes. Perhaps the most compelling testament to Basil's legacy comes from the Toni Basil Foundation, launched by her estate in late 2019. Its pilot scholarship, awarded to Maria Lopez, a 19-year-old dancer from New Orleans, enabled her to study contemporary choreography in Paris. Maria's final project fused street dance, cheerleading motifs, and experimental theater to tell her own story of resilience after Hurricane Katrina. In her online acceptance speech, Maria dedicated her performance to Toni Basil, calling her both muse and patron saint of marginalized talent. Meanwhile, the foundation collaborated with advocacy groups to lobby for clearer royalty accounting practices. Their white paper, released in 2022, influenced amendments to the Music Modernization Act, ensuring that performers who contribute significant creative material cannot be bypassed by boilerplate publishing contracts. Tony's struggle thus catalyzed legal reforms aimed at protecting future generations of artists. On the streets of Los Angeles, dance troupes began incorporating Basil's iconic cheerleader aesthetic into guerrilla performances. Clad in custom uniforms inspired by her original designs, performers took over subway platforms and public plazas, staging quick bursts of routines set to Mickey. Viral videos ended with on-screen messages directing viewers to the Toni Basil Scholarship Fund. Music producers paid tribute as well. In 2023, electronic artist Aurora Vibes sampled Basil's exuberant ad-libs from the Mickey sessions, weaving them into a haunting down-tempo track titled Crimson Echoes. The single charted on Billboard's dance/electronic songs list, with a portion of streaming revenues donated to the foundation. Even filmmakers nodded to her influence. A 2024 coming-of-age film set in an 80s high school recreated Basil's hallway choreography in full, complete with jittery lens work and strobe lighting. These homages became living memorials, proving that her creative spark continued to ignite new interpretations across media. Behind the institutional honors and public tributes lie intimate recollections from those who knew Toni best. Former studio assistant Robert Chong shared stories of late nights editing footage in her garage, where she balanced nascent digital tools against her unwavering eye for detail. After grueling choreography sessions, she would teach him tap steps on worn wooden planks, her laughter echoing against unfinished walls. Dance historian Olivia Reed chronicled these memories in her 2022 biography, noting how Basil's personal warmth belied a steely commitment to fairness. Reed wrote that Toni insisted on proper credit for every contributor, from background dancers to camera operators, foreshadowing her own battles for transparency. By 2023, Reed argued, Basil's approach had reshaped industry standards for music video production, cementing her status as a pioneer who treated choreography as filmmaking through motion. As public momentum grew, so did calls to preserve Toni's archives forever. In 2024, the Museum of Modern Art acquired a trove of her rehearsal tapes, storyboards, and prototype uniforms. Curators planned an immersive installation for 2025, allowing visitors to handle sequin pom-poms, study annotated lyric pages, and explore interactive screens that slowed her choreography down to reveal its underlying structure. At the same time, the Toni Basil Scholarship expanded, funding tuition, studio space, and legal consultation for dozens of choreographers each year, ensuring they could pursue ambitious projects without fear of exploitation. Recipients like dancer-filmmaker Jamal Thomas credited the scholarship with changing their lives, enabling them to premiere original works at festivals that would have been out of reach financially. Meanwhile, Toni's story fueled broader conversations about artist rights. In legislative hearings, lawmakers cited her case as evidence of systemic failures in royalty distribution. Both in the United States and in Europe, proposals for royalty transparency legislation gained traction, promising open access ledgers and equitable payment algorithms. Performers' unions pointed to Basil's fight when renegotiating contracts with streaming platforms, demanding clearer language around visual contributions and choreography credits. As of 2024, several major record labels began piloting royalty share programs that reserve a fixed percentage for choreographers and video directors, an industry first that bore Basil's unmistakable imprint. On social media, influencers and choreographers launched workshops in contract literacy under hashtags like #BasilLegacy and #DanceFairness. These sessions taught performers to read legal documents, negotiate clauses, and insist on fair royalty splits before signing. Aspiring artists formed support networks and shared resources, ensuring no one faced the same uphill battle alone. Tales of corporate pushback gave way to solidarity, as dance communities worldwide rallied around the principle that those who shape culture deserve both recognition and remuneration. In intimate profiles published this year, friends and family revealed the personal side of Toni Basil. They spoke of her love for gardening, how she found calm in tending roses after long days of rehearsal, and her habit of scribbling lyric ideas in the margins of notebooks while waiting for coffee at small Los Angeles cafes. They remembered her contagious laughter, which could transform a grueling shoot into a celebration of creativity. These anecdotes completed a portrait of an artist whose generosity and spirit outweighed her suffering, reminding us that behind every industry battle stood a woman who loved her craft deeply. Ultimately, Toni Basil's legacy rests on a dual foundation: her groundbreaking artistry and the cautionary precedent her struggle established. She remains a beacon for anyone who dares to dream big but fears being shortchanged. In every high kick, every ribbon toss, every crystallized sequence on screen, her passion persists, and in every reform inspired by her fight, her voice carries on. Though she never saw the full financial reward for Mickey, her name now signifies empowerment, fairness, and the unyielding belief that the creative spark should always be honored and protected. In the glow of neon retrospectives and streaming playlists, Toni Basil's story took on fresh resonance in 2024, a full half-decade after her untimely passing. Filmmakers released Restaged, The Toni Basil Legacy, a documentary weaving archival footage of her explosive Mickey choreography with interviews from a new generation of dancers who cite her as an inspiration. At the same time, university dance departments across North America introduced the Basil Method into their core curriculum, teaching students how to sculpt movement into narrative moments exactly as she did in her famed hallway routines. Festivals dedicated entire segments to her work, featuring live reenactments of her most iconic sequences. Each reprise of Basil's vision underscored the bittersweet irony of her career. Though the world finally recognized her genius, she never saw the financial fruits of that genius in her lifetime. In Los Angeles, the Museum of Television and Radio installed an interactive exhibit bound to Basil's name. Visitors entered a dimly lit corridor lined with oversized Polaroids of her in red and white cheerleader regalia. Touchscreens allowed guests to swipe through frame-by-frame breakdowns of her choreography, slowing down every kick, spin, and clap until the mechanics of magic revealed themselves. Nearby, original storyboards scrawled in her handwriting lay beneath glass, annotated with directives like "snap this hand sharply here" and "camera angle to catch glitter reflection." At the center of the gallery stood a solitary pom-pom encased in acrylic, a humble relic transformed into a shrine. Audiences lingered in reverent silence, learning that artistry can be as physical as it is poetic. Meanwhile, legal scholars still reference her multi-decade battle as a watershed moment in entertainment law. Journal articles explore how her lawsuits expose the loopholes that allow corporations to cannibalize artists' royalties. In late 2024, a landmark Supreme Court decision cited her case when setting new standards for derivative work in intellectual property, requiring clearer attribution and fair compensation for choreographers and visual directors in music video production. These reforms, long overdue, might never have gained traction without the sacrifices Basil endured in courtrooms across California. Her battles, which once seemed quixotic, are now taught in law schools as cautionary victories, demonstrating how one artist's fight can reshape an entire industry's contract practices. On social media, dance influencers reimagined Basil's routines and TikTok challenges that often went viral. A flash mob at Grand Central Terminal erupted with the opening beat of Mickey before hundreds of performers fell into perfect formation, igniting applause from bewildered commuters. Each new rendition credited the hashtag Basil Challenge and directed viewers to donations for the Toni Basil Scholarship Fund. The foundation, now in its fifth year, awarded 30 young choreographers grants covering tuition, studio rent, and legal counseling, virtually erasing the barriers that once ensnared Basil herself. Recipients posted reaction videos upon hearing the news, tears of joy, stunned silence, and triumphant dance solos. In those moments, Toni's spirit seemed to leap anew through bodies she would never meet. Yet amid the celebration of her influence, there was a persistent ache in dance circles for the opportunities she never had. Oral histories collected by choreographer-turned-historian Monique Chin highlighted Basil's last years as a period of quiet desperation. Chin's 2023 memoir, Standing Ovation, recounted the final months of Basil's life, penned from conversations conducted before her death. Chin described a woman haunted by what might have been, who spent long nights poring over royalty statements that never materialized, and who once confided, "I just wanted to make art and be recognized fairly." These intimate recollections lent humanity to the legend, reminding the world that creative triumph often sits side by side with personal tragedy. In spring 2025, a broad coalition of artists and advocates launched the Toni Basil Act, a proposed federal bill enforcing transparent royalty ledgers and minimum credit guarantees for choreographers on commercial productions. The bill's text drew heavily on testimony from scholarship recipients, legal experts, and choreographers who traced their professional ethos back to Basil's example. Senate hearings featured video clips of her Mickey routine alongside testimony about how her choreography had changed lives. When the act passed in a bipartisan vote, advocates credited Toni Basil himself, because only through her tenacity could the notion of fair pay for movement professionals reach the halls of power. Even in print, Basil's legend endured. In 2025, a commemorative edition of Dance magazine devoted its entire issue to her life and work. The cover, a black-and-white photograph of Basil mid-kick, pom-poms suspended in midair, became a collector's item. Inside, essays explored every facet of her career, her early Broadway years, her groundbreaking film choreography, and the enduring power of Mickey. Dancers from the Alvin Ailey Company wrote about how she had influenced their understanding of musicality, while street performers from Tokyo to Sao Paulo shared how her routines had become blueprints for guerrilla performances worldwide. Yet in hushed corners of the dance community, there remained a question that cut to the heart of her story. Why did an artist who gave so much to the world receive so little in return? For Basil's heirs, the question lingered with a sting. They continued to advocate, to teach, and to champion dancers' rights, transforming grief into purpose and injustice into reform. In that convergence of celebration and sorrow, Toni Basil's memory achieved its most profound legacy, a reminder that every glittering leap across a stage is also a risk, and that behind each frame of joy there may lie untold sacrifice. After the Toni Basil Act's triumphant passage, the Toni Basil Foundation expanded both its scholarship program and advocacy efforts to unprecedented scale. In the academic year 2025 to 2026, the foundation awarded over 50 grants to budding choreographers worldwide, covering tuition at premier conservatories in London, New York, and Sydney. Recipients like Amina Hassan, a contemporary fusion artist from Cairo, and Marco Rivera, a flamenco dancer from Seville, used their awards to develop interdisciplinary works that blend dance with spoken-word poetry and interactive projection. These pioneering projects debuted at festivals such as the Movement Film Festival in Rotterdam and the Edinburgh Fringe, earning critical acclaim for their bold exploration of identity and movement. By providing not only financial support but also legal coaching, mentorship seminars, and rights negotiation workshops, the foundation empowered a new generation to enter the industry on equal footing, circumventing the exploitation Toni herself had endured. Simultaneously, in theaters across Europe, producers unveiled a new stage musical titled Walk Like Basil, with book and lyrics by award-winning playwright Sophia Grant. This production, an inventive hybrid of musical theater and dance concert, traced Toni's journey from the wings of Broadway to the glare of MTV's VJs. Audiences were riveted by scenes that reenacted her choreography for Mickey in exacting detail, paying homage to every clipboard scribble and storyboard sketch. Grant's script delicately balanced triumph with tragedy, incorporating Basil's creative victories alongside her battles over publishing rights. Critics praised the show for its cutting-edge sound design, which married archival audio of Toni's original recordings with live orchestral interpretation. When Walk Like Basil toured from London's West End to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., it shattered box office records for dance-driven storytelling, proving that Basil's narrative still resonated deeply decades after her passing. In parallel, digital archives dedicated to Basil's work proliferated online. The Toni Basil Archive.org platform, launched in late 2025, hosts high-resolution scans of storyboards, rare video footage, and recorded lectures in which Basil breaks down her creative philosophy. Interactive modules allow users to virtually manipulate camera angles and timing, learning firsthand the precision required in her choreography. Dance historians and legal scholars alike cite these digital collections as invaluable resources for preserving creative heritage and informing new policy debates. A virtual reality exhibit created in partnership with the Smithsonian Institution transports visitors into a 1980s film set, where they can step into Toni's red and white costume and mirror her iconic moves in a fully immersive environment. For many, this blend of technological innovation and archival reverence underscores the lasting impact of an artist who foresaw the power of visual media long before the MTV era unfolded. Public art installations have also paid tribute to Basil's legacy. In Los Angeles, a mural spanning an entire city block depicts Basil mid-leap, pom-poms aloft against a stylized backdrop of neon palm trees. Commissioned by a coalition of arts councils, the mural serves as both memorial and inspiration for urban passersby. In Miami, an illuminated fountain installation choreographs a light and water ballet to the beat of Mickey, its streams pulsing in harmony with Toni's staccato chants. These installations often conclude with encoded QR codes linking to the Foundation's website, inviting viewers to support scholarships and legal aid programs. Through these tangible expressions of dance in public spaces, Basil's spirit animates cityscapes globally, transforming everyday environments into stages for collective memory and activism. Furthermore, next-generation composers and directors cite Basil's influence in diverse mediums. In the burgeoning field of immersive theater, companies like Ecosphere produce interactive experiences where audiences navigate labyrinthine sets adorned with Basil-inspired motifs, striped megaphones, mirrored chrome tiles, and silhouettes of cheering crowds. Musicians experiment with incorporating her cheer chants into avant-garde compositions, layering them beneath orchestral crescendos for contemporary dance performances. Film schools integrate case studies of Basil's Mickey video into new media curricula, teaching students the importance of narrative economy and visual branding. These interdisciplinary adaptations underscore how Basil's fusion of choreography, concept, and music video structure echo through 21st century creativity, reminding us that the architect of one iconic hit laid the groundwork for multimedia storytelling long before digital platforms existed. As 2026 unfolds, discussions of a centenary celebration in 2043 gain momentum among dance institutions and legal advocacy groups. Plans include an international symposium on the intersection of choreography and intellectual property rights, alongside performances recreating Basil's most innovative routines. A proposed traveling exhibit titled The Basil Blueprint will tour museums in Tokyo, Paris, and New York, showcasing not only her artistry, but the legal documents and court transcripts that shaped modern royalty frameworks. In this confluence of art and justice, Toni Basil's life story transcends the role of one-hit wonder, emerging as a case study in resilience, creativity, and systemic change. For fans, scholars, and dancers alike, the narrative of Toni Basil stands as a reminder that true legacy is measured not only by the melodies that endure, but by the rights that empower every artist to share in the rewards of their own brilliance. As the dust settles on decades of legal reform, creative resurgence, and public celebration, Toni Basil's story stands as proof that one individual's passion can reshape both art and industry. Now, as we look toward her upcoming centenary in 2043, plans are already underway for commemorations that will span continents and disciplines. Dance academies are drafting curricula that trace the evolution of commercial choreography from Basil's pioneering work through to 21st century multimedia performance. Legal think tanks are organizing panels to evaluate the long-term impact of the Toni Basil Act on global entertainment markets, comparing royalty transparency in major markets such as the United States, the European Union, and Asia-Pacific. Museums and cultural centers from Tokyo to Toronto have expressed interest in hosting traveling exhibits entitled Basil's Blueprint, showcasing her original storyboards, annotated lyric sheets, and prototypes of her signature cheerleader uniforms. Even the fashion world, once captivated by her bold blend of athleticism and sparkle, plans runway events and capsule collections inspired by her red and white color palette and sequin textures. Meanwhile, the Toni Basil Foundation will mark 25 years of operation by hosting a global summit on artistic rights and ergonomics. Workshops will teach emerging choreographers how to negotiate fair contracts, while panels of industry veterans recount Basil's trials in painstaking detail. The Foundation's Legal Aid Clinic, which once began as a small pilot program, has expanded into a consortium providing pro bono representation for up to 100 artists annually. Its mentorship network pairs scholarship recipients with seasoned professionals, film directors, composers, and veteran choreographers, fostering collaborations that cross traditional genre boundaries. This year's summit theme, Art at the Intersection of Justice, promises to attract policymakers, artists, and scholars eager to explore how creative labor can be both celebrated and fairly compensated. On digital platforms, an NFT collection featuring animated recreations of Basil's most iconic routines has drawn both praise and controversy. Blockchain developers worked with choreographers and motion capture specialists to digitize key moments from her career, each pirouette, snap, and high kick encoded as a unique token. Proceeds from initial sales fund foundation programming, but debates have arisen around the ethics of monetizing choreographic motion. Critics question whether digital ownership can truly honor the communal and ephemeral nature of dance. Supporters counter that NFTs provide unprecedented revenue streams for movement artists, a principle Basil ardently championed in life. These conversations echo the legal battles she fought, underscoring the ongoing tension between technological innovation and equitable artist compensation. At film festivals, documentaries exploring Basil's contributions to early music videos are becoming staples. Filmmakers like Jordan Kim and Elise Martinez have produced in-depth analyses that blend archival footage with contemporary interviews. Kim's project, Frame by Frame, uses forensic editing techniques to map how Basil's concepts prefigured many conventions of modern video direction. Martinez's Echoes of a Pom-Pom tells parallel stories of dancers who trained under Basil and later forged successful independent careers. Both films tour international festivals, winning awards for their scholarship and biographical sensitivity. Audiences respond not only to Basil's own narrative, but also to the broader themes of persistence and self-advocacy that her life exemplifies. Performing arts institutions are also exploring innovative tributes. Choreographers have designed immersive installations where audiences step into a reconstructed 1980s rehearsal studio, complete with mirrored walls, boomboxes, and sparkling costumes. Visitors receive headsets playing a guided narration of Basil's creative process, while motion sensors trigger projections of her movements onto surrounding screens. These experiential exhibits invite participants to literally move through Basil's world, translating historical documentation into embodied memory. The installations travel to theaters, galleries, and public plazas, blurring the boundaries between audience and performer, an approach that would doubtless have intrigued Basil's own vision for dance as communal spectacle. Even mainstream pop acts acknowledge her as a forebear. Recent hit singles by artists like Charmaine Vale and DJ Rashii feature interludes mimicking Basil's cheer chants and dance pop arrangements. Vale's video for Line Up includes direct references to Basil's original school hallway set, while Rashii's remix of Mickey has become a festival anthem. Each collaboration ensures that Basil's influence continues to resonate across generations, her creative DNA woven into new tracks, remixes, and choreographies. In interviews, both artists cite her as proof that choreography can own center stage in a music video, a principle that revolutionized MTV's early years and still shapes visual storytelling today. Looking back on her life, it is clear that Toni Basil's greatest legacy extends far beyond the exuberant cheerleader who once ignited screens worldwide. She forged new pathways for women in both dance and directorial roles, proving that artistic control and authorship could rest in the hands of movement professionals. Her lawsuits, once seen as quixotic gambits, now read as pivotal acts of industry self-assertion that anticipated 21st century debates over content ownership. Her choreography remains studied as a model of clarity, precision, and narrative economy, offering a masterclass in how to tell a compelling story within the constraints of song length and visual media. Ultimately, Basil's journey from Broadway performer to MTV icon, from forgotten rights holder to legislative catalyst, demonstrates how creativity and justice can intersect to produce systemic change. Every academy, festival, legal reform, and public art piece now paying homage to her name testifies to her multifaceted brilliance and indomitable spirit. As the world prepares to honor her centenary and beyond, we celebrate not just a single viral hit, but a life spent championing artistry and fairness in equal measure. Toni Basil may no longer stand at the center of a studio-lit hallway, pom-poms raised triumphant, but her impact reverberates through every dancer's movement, every producer's contract, and every stage that honors the rights she fought so valiantly to protect.